Welcome back to the deep dive where we dive deep into the stuff that really matters.
That's right.
Today we're wading into some pretty choppy waters.
Mm.
US and China trade tensions and what it all means for Europe.
Right.
And we've got those insider sources that make this so much more than just headlines.
Absolutely.
So picture this, a global power struggle where economies are the weapons and Europe is caught right in the crossfire.
Yeah.
That's what we're unpacking today.
It's not just some theoretical trade spat, though, is it?
Right.
This has real-world consequences for everyone,
Yeah.
from giant corporations down to, well, our everyday lives.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So let's get specific.
Okay.
One of the most startling things in these reports is that former President Trump was pushing for a 25% tariff on Chinese goods.
Wow.
Not just any goods, though. We're
Right.
talking food, medicine, even cars.
Really essential goods.
Essential goods.
Yeah.
But why that number, though?
Right.
Is that just an arbitrary figure?
No, that 25% was very deliberate.
Okay.
It was high enough to seriously disrupt trade, put pressure on China's economy, but not so high that it would totally cripple U.S. businesses who still rely on those Chinese imports.
Oh, so there's a real strategy behind that number.
Exactly, a calculated move.
Almost like a calculated shot across the bow.
Exactly, and to understand why this hit China so hard, we have to look at their economic landscape at the time.
Okay.
They were already dealing with a need for stimulus, a shaky real estate market.
Right.
This tariff threat just threw gasoline on that fire.
So China's in a corner. They need to find a way out.
They need to find a way out.
Could closer ties with Europe be the answer?
That's exactly the gamble they seem to be making.
Okay.
If the U.S. market becomes a minefield, Europe's massive consumer base and their infrastructure look pretty appealing.
But wouldn't that just make Europe the new battleground?
Yeah.
They'd be stuck between these two superpowers?
That's the fear.
Yeah.
And it goes even deeper. The reports suggest this might have been Trump's intention all along, a divide-and-conquer strategy.
Well,
Disrupt the existing global trade network and then step in to reshape it with the U.S. at the top.
wow, that's a bold play.
Very bold.
And speaking of being in the crosshairs, European car manufacturers,
Yeah.
especially BMW and Mercedes,
Uh-huh.
they could be collateral damage in this trade war.
Right.
They were making huge inroads in the U.S. market.
A 25% tariff on their cars.
Right.
That's going to sting, not just for those companies, but for the entire European economy.
Right.
We're talking about thousands of jobs, entire supply chains that could be disrupted.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
It is.
It's almost like China needs Europe,
Uh-huh.
at least according to our sources. They use that word specifically,
Yeah.
saying Ukraine needs Europe.
Mm.
This feels less like economics and more like a global game of risk.
Right, and that word need is crucial here.
Okay,
It reveals a level of desperation in China's strategy.
right.
Let's not forget their significant investments in Ukraine, particularly in agriculture, leasing farmland to ensure food security for their population.
So it's not just about finding new markets for their goods.
Right.
They're also trying to lock down essential resources
Exactly.
in strategic locations.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean for Europe's future, though?
Right.
I mean, they're caught in a tough spot.
Well, that's where the analysis gets really concerning.
Okay.
These reports highlight a lack of strong, unified leadership within Europe, which could make them vulnerable in this power struggle.
So they could end up as the economic casualties in a war they didn't start.
That's a very real possibility, and it really underscores why we need to pay attention to these global dynamics.
Okay.
Seemingly isolated events, like a tariff proposal, can trigger these chain reactions with far-reaching consequences.
Yeah.
It's a butterfly effect.
It is a butterfly effect, and we need to be aware of it.
Absolutely. So
Stay informed.
stay informed. That's the key takeaway here.
Absolutely. It really does feel like Europe's walking a tightrope here. But shifting gears a bit, there's this story that's been making headlines, Nikola, the electric truck company, going bankrupt.
Yeah. And the rise and fall of Nikola. It was once valued at billions and then poof, gone.
I remember that it was a big deal for a while. It felt like the future of transportation and then bankruptcy.
Yeah. It's a cautionary tale for sure.
Yeah.
It shows how quickly things can change,
Yeah.
especially in emerging markets like electric vehicles.
Like electric vehicles, yeah.
Did-
All that hype, all that investment, and then it just collapses.
Right. What happened?
Yeah. What happened? Did they just overpromise and underdeliver?
Well, there's definitely an element of that. The market got caught up in the excitement of electric vehicles, but Nikola, it seems, they couldn't keep up with their own hype.
Right?
They couldn't deliver on their promises,
Yeah.
and investors got spooked.
Makes you wonder about the psychology of investors, right? It's
Yeah,
like they're looking for the next big thing, but maybe sometimes they get blinded by the hype.
absolutely. There's this herd mentality, especially in volatile markets. Everyone wants to get in on the ground floor of the next Tesla, but they don't always stop to ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
Is this company truly innovative? Is their technology viable? Do they have a solid business plan?
So a little bit of FOMO mixed with a lack of due diligence.
That's a good way to put it. And Nikola's downfall is a stark reminder that even in the midst of these global power plays, individual companies and investors can get caught in the crossfire.
Speaking of individuals making waves, what about Elon Musk? The reports mention his shift in focus from Tesla to SpaceX and Twitter. It's almost like he's gotten bored with electric cars.
Yeah, it's an interesting development for sure. He's poured so much time and energy into Tesla, and now he seems more interested in rockets and social media.
Hmm.
Some speculate that he's sensing a shift in the technological landscape.
So instead of just making electric cars, he's thinking bigger space exploration, controlling the narrative on social media. Is he playing a different game now?
It's possible he sees those ventures as more critical to the future. SpaceX, with its goal of colonizing Mars, certainly has that save humanity appeal. And Twitter, with its potential to influence public opinion, could be seen as a way to shape the future of discourse.
It's almost like he's looking beyond just making products and trying to influence the direction of society itself. Is that too far-fetched?
Maybe not. Musk has always been ambitious, and he's not afraid to disrupt industries. It's worth considering whether other tech giants might follow his lead.
Right.
Could we see a shift away from consumer tech and towards space exploration or other seemingly futuristic ventures?
That's a wild thought, but it makes you wonder if we're on the cusp of some major technological and societal shifts. And speaking of tech, these reports also touch on the performance of giants like Google and Microsoft, particularly their work with AI. They're not exactly struggling, but even they seem to be feeling the heat of this global uncertainty.
That's right. Even the most powerful tech companies aren't immune to the forces we've been discussing. The trade war, the geopolitical tensions, the rapidly evolving technological landscape, it all creates a level of uncertainty that affects everyone.
It's like this constant undercurrent of anxiety. No one knows for sure what the future holds, and that makes everyone, even the giants, a little bit nervous.
Exactly. And it's not just the tech giants who are feeling it. It's investors, businesses, policymakers. Everyone's trying to navigate this uncharted territory. The old rules don't seem to apply anymore, and that can be unsettling.
So how do we make sense of it all? We've got trade wars, bankruptcies, shifting tech landscapes, AI on the rise. It's enough to make your head spin.
It's definitely a lot to process, but I think the key is to stay informed, to try to connect the dots, and to think critically about the information we're consuming.
Right.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand and hope it all goes away.
We need to be proactive, not reactive,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We need to be anticipating potential challenges and opportunities and thinking about how we can adapt.
Hmm.
This isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving in this new world order.
And a big part of that is understanding these global events, right? It's not just about reading headlines, it's about understanding the underlying dynamics, the motivations, the potential consequences.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these reports so valuable. They provide that deeper level of insight, that context that helps us make sense of the chaos.
It's like having a roadmap in a world where the landscape is constantly changing.
That's a great analogy. And the more we understand the terrain, the better equipped we'll be to navigate it.
But it's not enough just to understand, right? We have to be willing to act on that information, to make decisions, to take risks.
You're absolutely right. Knowledge without action is useless. We need to be both informed and empowered to make a difference.
So it's not about being passive observers, it's about being active participants in shaping the future. But with all this talk of power struggles and global uncertainty, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Like, what can one person really do?
That's a common feeling. But it's important to remember that even small actions can have a ripple effect. By staying informed, by engaging in thoughtful discussions, by supporting organizations working towards positive change, we can all contribute to a better future.
It's about taking ownership not just of our own lives, but of the world around us.
Exactly. And that sense of ownership, that sense of agency is what can empower us to make a difference.
It feels like we're living in this constant state of what's next. And speaking of what's next, our sources actually offer some predictions about the future,
Oh, really?
particularly when it comes to the markets.
Okay.
They paint a picture of continued consolidation at record highs, but with an undercurrent of volatility. It's almost like the calm before a potential storm.
So not necessarily a crash, but maybe more like a roller coaster,
Yeah.
ups and downs, but maybe staying within a certain range.
That's a good way to visualize it.
Yeah.
The factors we've been discussing, the trade war, the geopolitical tensions, the technological disruptions, they're all contributing to this sense of unease in the markets. Investors are hesitant, but they're also not panicking yet.
Right.
So buckle up, but maybe don't jump ship just yet.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
It sounds like we need to stay informed and, as you said earlier, be ready to adapt.
Precisely. This is not a time to be complacent. Diversify your investment, stay informed about global events, and be prepared to adjust your strategy as needed. The markets reward those who are agile and informed.
It's like we need to develop a sixth sense for anticipating these shifts, almost like a global economic spidey sense.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And a key part of developing that spidey sense is understanding the interconnectedness of it all. What happens in one corner of the world can ripple out and affect us all, whether it's a trade dispute, a technological breakthrough, or even something like Elon Musk's latest venture.
Right. It really can. It's like we're all players in this giant, complex game, and the rules are constantly changing.
Exactly. And the more we understand those rules, the better we can play the game. But it's not just about winning or losing. It's about understanding the forces at play and making informed decisions that benefit ourselves, our communities, and the world around us.
So information is power, but only if we know how to use it.
Right.
And that brings us back to the importance of these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's about going beyond the headlines and really understanding the complexities of the world we live in.
Absolutely. These deep dives are like a crash course in global awareness, helping us connect the dots and see the bigger picture. And the more we understand, the more empowered we become to navigate these uncertain times.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today. From trade wars and shifting alliances to bankruptcies and AI, even touched on Elon Musk's latest moves. It's a lot to take in, but hopefully our listeners are walking away with a deeper understanding of the forces shaping our world.
I hope so too. The world is complex and constantly evolving. But by staying informed, engaged, and adaptable, we can all not just survive, but thrive in these interesting times.
Beautifully put. That's a wrap for this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore another fascinating corner of our ever-changing world. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.